Angel Reese was filmed suggesting Caitlin Clark's recent WNBA and AP Player of the Week honors were merely a stroke of luck. Reese argues she would have earned those accolades herself had she not been sidelined by injury. Meanwhile, Clark exploded for 45 points and 10 assists in less than half an hour of play, shattering a professional basketball record that has never been reached even by NBA stars. Securing her second weekly award, conversely, Reese picked up an injury on a botched layup attempt while completely unguarded near the hoop. So, who really benefited from luck here? The game footage and the statistical breakdown don't leave much room for debate. Are you Team Clark or Team Reese? Drop your thoughts in the comments. 45 points and 10 assists, with the clock barely crossing the 3-0-minute mark. Consider how rare that is, as most athletes require full game minutes and miraculous late-game pushes to reach those figures. Clark managed it while enjoying time on the bench. Heading into the clash against the Seattle Storm, nobody anticipated such a historic performance. It seemed like a standard home contest. It was a difficult Western Conference battle against a defensive-minded Storm roster featuring interior forces like Dominique Malonga and Awa Pham. Nevertheless, Clark finished with a stat line that remains unprecedented in both the WNBA and the Men's Professional League. Recording 40 points and 10 assists in a single outing is a feat only ever accomplished by one WNBA player, Clark. Combine the total output 45 points, 10 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks, and you're looking at a rare performance. Only 4 individuals in the annals of pro basketball history across both leagues have hit those markers: Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, Luka Doncic, and Cade Cunningham. That is the complete list, and Clark has officially earned her place among them. Here is the truly mind-blowing detail. Jordan, Wade, Doncic, and Cunningham were on the court for 4 0+ minutes to achieve those stats. Clark did it in under 30 minutes, and she wasn't finished rewriting the record books. Her three-pointers were landing early, featuring step-backs and off-the-dribble shots that left defenders standing still in frustration. Her drives were successful at the basket rather than ending in turnovers. Her assists weren't just filler, they were elite, live dribble plays that found Kelsey Mitchell perfectly in stride coming off screen, and Aaliyah Boston timing her rolls to the rim with absolute precision. This wasn't merely a fluke performance. Clark also became the quickest player to reach 200 career three-pointers, a milestone that took other legends years to achieve. She reached it in a fraction of the time. Comparing those two achievements reveals a clear trend. It wasn't just a lucky shooting night. The second quarter step-back triple ignited the arena as she launched from 28 feet, with a defender right on her. Then she followed up with that transition dime to Mitchell. It was effortless. No pause, just a smooth, one-handed maneuver for an effortless bucket. Keep your eyes on the Fever's sideline during that play. Everyone is on their feet, roaring because they realize the magnitude of what just transpired. Stephanie White wasn't even attempting to keep her emotions in check. By the final period, the entire team knew the scoreboard numbers were truly exceptional. That performance turned the Player of the Week conversation into a foregone conclusion, and honestly, the Seattle match was only half the story of Clark's incredible week. The New York Liberty ambushed the Fever right out of the gate, and for a while it seemed their defense would completely overwhelm Indiana. Breanna Stewart and that front court were dominating the key. The atmosphere was deafening, leaving the Fever looking lost and desperate for solutions on both ends. Most teams would crumble under that pressure against the defending champions. But the Fever held firm. After halftime, Clark transformed, racking up 17 points and 7 assists in just 2 quarters of play, which is a full game output for most backcourt players. New York began double-teaming her the moment she reached mid-court, daring others to step up. Clark read the defense perfectly every single time, setting up Sophie Cunningham for wide-open triples and hitting Aaliyah Boston on dives to the hoop whenever the secondary defender reacted a fraction too slow. That's the high-level basketball IQ that elite scorers often lack. Clark executed it repeatedly. The final frame is when the game truly slipped away from New York. Clark intercepted a sloppy pass for a takeaway, then rotated quickly to swat away a layup attempt. Shortly after, she pulled up from deep to seal the victory. That's the highlight reel people will be watching for years. A steal, a block, and a clutch three-pointer all within 4 minutes. Totaling it all up, Clark registered 4 steals and 2 blocks to go with her points, leading the Fever to a 108-88 victory. The result was never in doubt by the time the final horn sounded. Such a comprehensive stat sheet is rare for anyone, let alone a floor general running the entire offense. Award voters don't just focus on the point totals. They look for these complete, well-rounded efforts, the defensive grit, the fourth quarter, composure, and the ability to elevate teammates when the stakes are highest. Clark's game against Liberty had everything: a rally, lockdown defense, and teammates who trusted her vision. 2. Record-shattering performances in 1 week made the AP and WNBA decisions simple. There was no argument to be had. While Clark was busy having the best week of her professional career, a very different narrative was playing out in Atlanta, and it was centered entirely on Angel Reese. Recall that earlier statement? Regarding the current season, Reese boldly declared herself the WNBA's equivalent of Michael Jordan while on camera, without a second of hesitation. That assertion has persisted ever since, and the events of the past week perfectly illustrate why it keeps resurfacing. Let's look at the Toronto matchup, which is where the game footage takes an unpleasant turn. Reese forcefully drives her shoulder into Niara Sabali, hitting her directly in the ribs, leaving her in clear physical distress. Yet, there was no whistle, and the officiating completely ignored what transpired on the court. Instead of taking accountability, Reese post-game labeled head coach Sandy Brondello a clown for supporting her own athlete, while suggesting Brondello's criticisms were racially motivated. That entire incident escalated rapidly, culminating in Brondello being suspended for the aftermath, meaning Reese's dirty play resulted in penalties for everyone but herself. If you analyze the sequence closely, the footage tells the real story. Reese sets her stance, lunges with her shoulder early, and plows into Sabali's midsection before the ball arrives, which clearly constitutes illegal contact that officials should have penalized but failed to address. The league conducted a review afterward. The clip was circulated widely, and the comparison is stark. While Clark spent the night dismantling the defense with polished, intelligent play, the next moment saw Reese putting an opponent on the deck after a shoulder-led strike to the ribs. Things grew even more bizarre when Chicago traveled to face the Atlanta Dream. Reese leaped for a standard layup, entirely uncontested. She was wide open, yet she landed clutching her knee as if she had suffered a major collision. There was zero physical contact involved. The commentators were left stunned, struggling in real time to decipher what had just unfolded. They replayed the footage repeatedly because there was simply no collision or foul to explain the injury upon either the initial broadcast or the subsequent replays. Contrast this with the broader narrative. Clark's case for Player of the Week was being championed by national media simultaneously as Reese left the court, grabbing her knee following a play where absolutely nothing occurred. Consider that Michael Jordan comment once more and really reflect on it. One athlete dedicated the week to cementing her name in the history books, posting 45 points and 10 assists in under 30 minutes, setting records for three-pointers and dominating elite teams. The other spent her week forcing an opponent out of the game with a dirty hit, sparking a coach's suspension and then limping off the floor after a non-contact injury without anyone near her. By any objective metric, performance, durability, or public standing this week marks one of the lowest points in Reese's tenure. Once Clark was officially awarded Player of the Week, Reese made sure to make her displeasure known. Not necessarily in a public statement, but she certainly wasn't silent. Before we dissect what she was recorded saying on a Check out the leaked audio after Clark secured her weekly honors. Smash that like button and join our community. Your support means everything. Reese was caught claiming Clark had luck on her side once the announcement was public, and the surrounding situation makes it look even worse. This wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment jab, it occurred long after. The trophy was handed out, and everyone was fully aware of the stats. Those nearby heard it clearly. Word traveled rapidly, leaking out in the typical fashion of today's era, where someone is always recording. Compare that remark against the actual performance metrics, and it immediately falls apart. Clark dropped 45 points and delivered 10 assists in under half an hour, a feat unmatched in either Pro League, before following up with an incredibly efficient second half against the reigning champions. Reese, meanwhile, ended her week with a non-contact knee incident during a standard layup. No opponents were near her, and the broadcast offered no real clarity, labeling one performance lucky while calling the other unfortunate collapses under basic scrutiny of the court action. This behavior is nothing new for Reese. We've seen similar reactions stretching back to her collegiate days, the WNBA draft, and various musings on media bias that consistently convey the same message, that she viewed Clark's achievements as unearned gifts. This is a recurring trend, not an isolated lapse in judgment. Furthermore, she isn't operating on a clean slate. The lingering fallout from the Brondello suspension remains relevant, stemming directly from Reese's collision with Sealy, which keeps her tied to drama even when she claims to be uninvolved. That reality is significant. A coach was penalized for defending a player Reese injured, yet she somehow manages to drag herself back into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Fans certainly didn't. Let the lucky comment slide. It trended across social media, and rather than receiving empathy, Reese faced intense backlash, because people find it hard to pity someone who spent that same period slamming into an opponent's ribs. Look at the contrast. Clark and Cunningham draw fan support by maintaining their composure and letting their skill do the talking. Reese utters 4 words, and the public response is pure frustration and viral mockery. Calling it luck is fundamentally inaccurate. You don't stumble through 30 minutes of high-level, precise basketball while dismantling multiple defensive schemes in 1 week by accident. Managing injury recovery, controlling your minutes, and setting records untouched by anyone else isn't just chance. It requires conditioning, immense focus, and total trust from the coaching staff to lead the offense late in the game, quarter. In reality, that remark boosted Clark's standing far more effectively than any highlight reel could. While the public discourse swirled around the trophy race, Clark was quietly securing a historic week for her brand. It starts with the financials, as this stands as the most lucrative Nike partnership in WNBA annals. This isn't just some minor detail. Nike is essentially declaring that her marketability and performance surpass every athlete who has preceded her. These types of sums aren't allocated for mere potential. They are granted because the company has crunched the numbers. They examined the jersey sales, monitored viewership metrics, and tracked the constant surge in search queries following every contest. State Farm didn't choose her as their inaugural female brand ambassador simply because of a viral clip. They selected her for her reach and credibility, the dual pillars that drive high-impact national marketing campaign. Millions of casual observers who ignore the WNBA entirely are still intimately familiar with Caitlin Clark's name. That's the kind of broad cultural resonance State Farm anchors its major initiatives around. Then there is the Wilson deal. This hits particularly hard when you recall everything Reese claimed about herself earlier this spring. Wilson provided Clark with a signature basketball, something not seen since the era of Michael Jordan. Not Kobe, not LeBron, just Jordan, and now Clark. Contrast that with the "I'm the Michael Jordan" of the WNBA rhetoric, because the true comparison isn't being voiced by Reese. It's being solidified by a top-tier manufacturer branding gear with her name. Gatorade's agreement adds yet another record-setting figure to her portfolio. They didn't stop at just the financial incentive. They developed a custom rainbow flavor that now sits on shelves, branded with her identity, a move reserved only for athletes corporations believe will remain at the summit for years. These things don't happen in a vacuum. Sponsors analyze performances like the one Clark delivered, putting up 45 points and 10 assists in under half an hour, including a dominant second-half surge against the Liberty. That is the exact footage scrutinized in corporate boardrooms whenever these massive contracts are up for renewal or expansion. Both Forbes and Sportico have labeled her the world's most influential female athlete, leading in WNBA pay, once you aggregate her off-court income. This is no longer just a trend or a hype cycle, it's a legitimate business success story. None of this works without her supporting cast fully buying into the system. Mitchell creates space, Boston cleans up at the rim, and Hull shuts down the opposition's best perimeter threats. It all builds the collective trust reflected in the final box scores, which ultimately drives the decision-makers in the advertising industry. The ratings are simply validating that reality. Likewise, viewership figures for Fever matchups are surging, far outpacing the standard league averages. During that identical week, she secured Player of the Week honors. She also solidified her status as the league's premier commercial draw. This Fever squad is just beginning to scratch the surface. Let's re-examine the footage. One athlete recorded 45 points and 10 rebounds in under 30 minutes of action, a milestone unprecedented in either the NBA or WNBA, before dominating the entire second half to dismantle the reigning title holders. Meanwhile, another player caused a rib injury, triggered a coaching suspension, and eventually suffered a non-contact knee injury while moving alone. The core of Clark, Mitchell, Boston, Cunningham, and Hull is currently forging a legacy that transcends previous injury woes and dirty plays. One group thrives on wellness and tactical focus. The other is defined by avoidable errors and poor remarks, dominating the headlines simultaneously. So, are you backing the rising star Clark or the up-and-coming talent Reese? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Also, ensure you will buy. Hit like, subscribe, and enable alerts for the latest updates and commentary. Tap the link on your screen and join us for the next episode.